my screen on the 1811 upgrade note page. This is where we have put a lot of links, the recorded webinars, access to the blog posts and videos that we have done thus far for 1811. So more further knowledge as we show them today. You may say, I'd like a little bit more information. There may be a blog post for that, or you can head over to the release notes. You also, if you registered for this webinar, which probably you did because that's how you're in the room, there is a agenda that I will be following that shows each one of the features or enhancements that I'll show today in addition to the bug itself. So you can see any information also there. So that's really great. So you can see we also, for all those really interested in creating reports, which we'll talk about later today, we do have a new look for Koha has a new look for the 1811 schema. So it's definitely bright and fantastic versus the old kind of dull greenish, grayish, brownish schema that we had before. You still have the same functionality that instead of Control Fing to search, now you have a nice search bar that you can type in. Say you wanted to look up for items. This will give you anything with the word item in it. Again, if I go over to that table of items, I have the same sort of look. It just is like bigger and cleaner, I would say. And then as you go down, you still also have those nice, pretty spider webs. I'm sure there's a technical term for those, but I call them spider webs. As I was saying, there's the blog posts that we've done thus far. Here is our huge list of recorded webinar sessions, so you can always go ahead and watch them. And it looks like we have a question. Maybe somebody can't hear me. There is a link to the Koha manual here. So this is your link to your Koha manual, which will bring you right over to there. I can also put that in the chat if you want. Speaking of the manual, we have something else that you can see when we go into, oops, I guess I can't do anything about that question. We'll just sit there. So yep, so there was the manual, the schema, the recorded webinars. Then we have another place that you can access the other features we may not cover in today's webinar, but that may be still interesting to you. So you can see those. And as I was saying at the bottom of the page, you have all the system preferences, bringing us to a grand total of 9,700,651. Does anyone want to guess how many system preferences that there are in Koha? And my faithful Andrew will get that answer for me, and then I will give you the answer at the end. So feel free to throw that into chat, what you think the grand total of system preferences there are in Koha. Andrew, do you think that's something we can tally up with a report, possibly? Probably. I'm sure. We'll get that total. Yes. Oh, we already have one guess. Oh, Peggy, way up. You gotta make that number higher. Okay, without further ado, let's jump in. As I said earlier, you will be getting upgraded in the month of June. If this is your first upgrade, get excited. You will get a nice little box in red displayed on your staff client with the date of your upgrade. All you need to do is make sure that morning you clear the cache of all browsers that use Koha. And then you are ready to go. So it's very, very easy. Today's webinar doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles as maybe the OPAC does. A lot of admin is some back-end changes. I will go over some system preferences. We've hit some system preferences as we've gone along if it pertains to patrons in Circ. But again, you have resources available to you to see those as well. Okay, so let's go into the, there is a new system preference called auto reconcile, I think. Doesn't really say in my notes, so let's put reconcile. So I think everybody remembers if you do account auto reconcile. Sometime in 1805, Koha added a apply credit button to your pay fines tab. And this was the ability to kind of apply the credits that were outstanding on your patrons' accounts. There is now the ability to have Koha auto reconcile patrons' accounts. And this will apply credits against the debits. And this is in the first in, first out manner. So your oldest outstanding debts will be paid off first. So this will do this for you where you won't have to hit that apply credit button. Koha will do it for you. So this is something that is really, really helpful. If you have been using that apply credit button, you could always look at this to choose to do instead. Marcia, that's close. That's a close number, in my opinion. I think Marcia guessed 1,500. I feel like there are 1,500. So if you want to, you can go ahead and turn that on once you go to 1811. If any libraries here, raise your hand if you are using Talking Tech. So Talking Tech is an outside service vendor that sends out messages to your patrons. Now we have the ability to skip patrons with valid emails for Talking Tech. And this was a Bedford Public Library sponsored enhancement. So patrons with a valid email can be skipped when generating those files. So if your library uses Talking Tech and would like to use this enhancement, please open a ticket and we'd be happy to help you. Told you there's not a lot of fun and good times in admin some days, but I'm sure that's super exciting for Talking Tech users. I didn't see anyone. Oh, go ahead.
I'm honestly just saying something to make sure my microphone is finally working.
Oh, I thought you were very silent, Andrew.
Hello.
Hello.
Why hasn't Kelly responded to me? I said I can write a report to count system preferences.
Okay, good. We've only had 3 guesses, so come on. I know there's only like 20 of you, but give a guess. Throw it out there. Another thing that I really can't show, and raise your hand, use that little hand button. Oh, goodness, Phyllis. Whoa. Is the Shibboleth. So if anyone's using Shibboleth, there is now the ability to authenticate for the staff client. So that is the ability to use the Shibboleth for patron authentication is now available in the staff client too. So that's really exciting. And again, if you are interested in that, just submit a ticket because there are some setup involved. Something I can now show you on the screen is the help button has changed. Prior to 1811, let me go into, say, serials. When you use that help button, you had a little pop-up that gave you a brief summary of maybe how you can get some help using that module or feature. Now the help button actually will bring you to the manual itself. So instead of a pop-up and then a link to the manual, this will bring you right to the manual, to the place where you are still in Koha. So that functionality is still there. It just brings you in a new tab. And if anybody knows me, I'm a tab hoarder, so I love a new tab. So I still am in my serials module for Koha, and now I'm in the serials part of the manual. So that's really exciting. I was kind of on the fence on how I felt about that, but we've gotten some good responses thus far. So I think people are liking that. Okay, let us head over. Price is right. Yeah, Marcia, this 1,500 is a little high. I really want to say it's close, but guess again. 1,500 is way too high. There is a few REST API features that have been added, and this is just the ability to add API endpoints for dealing with patron accounts, which is something that will be useful when a library wants to integrate it with a third party for payment processing. So we do have some new API endpoints that have been introduced, and I'm not sure if that's in the agenda, but that's in my notes. So if you want more information, please let us know. Okay, now we can go over to the reports. The reports, there are 2 super fun things that have been added to the report module itself, and that is one of those, oh, Tamdu, you're getting close, is the report, the ability to create charts for reports. Charts, bar charts, pie charts, line charts, all 3. It's so exciting. So let's go ahead and grab a report that was created for this, because obviously maybe not all your reports could be made into charts, especially a lot of your patron reports if you're looking for overdues. But let's go ahead and run this circ report. So I've created a circulation report, and we're going to look at circs for the year of 2018. Standard look still applies. We still have that sum. Nice little grid here, but now we have a new button. It says create chart. So now we can go ahead and tell Koha what chart we would like. So you want a pie chart or a bar chart or a line chart, and you are going to get a fabulous report. So let's do this. Include all. Draw. Who knows? Look at that. I guess we probably don't want total transactions, but it's so pretty. It's color coded. It kind of tells me each of them in that month, July, August. This is our test site, so we don't have a ton of circs. We weren't super busy in the month of March with one issue. I think I was on staff that day, Andrew. You weren't here. It was just me. And Jessie has put in a blog post for that tutorial that she and I did on this. So we go through the steps to do this and the different ways that you can show your results. So for all those users that love a good chart, this could be a winner. You also have the one more ability to download this, and the download is in an SVG format, and it is something S, I can't remember what that stands for, but a vector graph. And last admin webinar, a partner told us what program you can open those in, because it's going to be a large file. But we also talked about, just screenshotting it and putting that into any report that you need. So a really fantastic feature to the reporting module. Thanks, Jessie, for putting that in there. I had one more feature I wanted to show you in the reporting module. If I create a new SQL report, this now has the ability to, I can't remember what this is called.
Code mirror.
What is it called?
That, if you're talking about what I think you're talking about.
Code mirror, yeah. So you can see, look how it makes it color. It's so pretty, isn't it? It's like, it gives you line numbers, gives you just such pretty kind of identification of what you're writing now. So it's kind of created in a different way. So when you get those errors, which I get a lot, Oh, GIMP. Somebody said GIMP will open an SVG file. If you get those errors and it says line 4, line 27, it will actually tell you this. If you go back to your SQL, you'll know what line you're in. So let's go ahead, instead of me trying to write a report for no reason, let's go to the reports and see what it looks like now. I guess I can go back to that 81 report. See how pretty is that? All the colors, all the lines. So this is called Code Mirror, and this has been added to the SQL box when you create reports or edit reports. I know, super exciting. Inks, thank you. Inkscape is also an open source, like GIMP to open. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so that's really exciting. So you have chart features and you have Code Mirror added to your report module.
Kelly, just for fun.
Yeah.
In that report,
yeah,
we delete one of the closing quotation marks.
Ooh, which okay, so like under total transitions like this.
See how it makes everything go red after that? That's, I think, my favorite part. Because I fail to close quotation marks all the time when writing reports.
I had no idea it did that. Oh, that's awesome. That's even better than anything. And then I put it back and it, oh, thanks, Andrew.
Sure.
That's pretty exciting. I learned something new today. Okay, we are going to pop over to notices and slips. In our Patron webinar, we talked about 2 notices that have been added for account payments and account write-offs that you can email to your patrons, or Koha can email to your patrons if you turn that feature on. And something we also talked about when we talked about those notices is the introduction or transition Koha seems to be going in using more of a template toolkit versus the hungry alligators in notices. So let me pop over to one of these that I know is written in template toolkit. And part of the 2 introductions of these 2 notices is they cannot use anything but template toolkit. So you definitely have a different look than a lot of those hungry alligator features. However, as confusing as this is for me, it is actually gives the library a lot more functionality in creating notices than the hungry alligators did prior. So we do seem to have a trend of going forward in template toolkit. And so both now, this is one of the newer notices that got released in this version. But we also have now the checkout and the check-in notice will also have been transformed into template toolkit. So let's do my checkout. Nope, it has not.
Jean asked in chat if their notices will be automatically changed to template toolkit or if they will have to do that themselves. Yeah, well, my understanding is nothing's going to get automatically changed over, but so far these 2 new ones, the payment and write-off receipt emails, they're the only things that need template toolkit. Everything else can still use the old message format.
And I've actually seen where notices have had both hungry alligator and template toolkit. So I know that Lucas has added just, one single template toolkit line to a notice that would give some more functionality to the notice for users. So it doesn't look like they are automatically changed as from my view, unless I'm looking at the wrong one. But I guess as they start to transition, we will provide that information if necessary. There is a great resource Let me pop this open. On Template Toolkit. So let me put this into chat. This is a Koha wiki page that will provide more information about that. Okay. There is a new system preference. Oh, shocking. I hope everyone's guessing on number of system preferences. There is a new system preference that goes along with SMS messaging. So if your library is using Koha's version of SMS, there was previously a system preference that you needed to set up so you could see that SMS box in your enhanced messaging preferences for your patrons. Now we actually have the ability to send a address that the SMS messages are being sent from. Prior to that, it was, actually I have no idea what it used to be, but now you can set up an email that it says it's coming from your library at librarian@library.edu or something like that. So the user knows that it's from a good email address versus just this standard kind of look that it gets. So that's good. You would go ahead and just put an email address in there, and that's where it will show it's from. So that's great. That is a new system preference.
Scrolling back through the text messages on my phone, it looks like those currently just come from whatever you have entered as your library admin email address.
Admin, okay, so you could have a separate one where some people may want to have a separate kind of area from where they come from versus the admin. Okay. Circ and Find rules. You all know that it's so fun. Circ and Find rules, they're the best, aren't they? There is now the ability to add a note to a circulation and find rule. So I know another column in our circulation and find rule table is never usually a loved thing. However, this is super useful. So you can see that I have a new column that's called note. And so you can go ahead and add a note when you create a rule. If you edit, you can edit the note, but you can see I have a view note. And then when I hover it, it will tell me what the note is. So this is a circ note where you can add info about why the rule is the way it is. And it has a maximum of 100 characters. So you could have a lot written in there. So say you created a rule that was only useful for a certain time period, or people didn't know why you were adding the note, or you wanted to add a note why you were adding the circulation rule, which is something I would do. So now you can do that. So that's really cool. 30 days kilometers, Andrew. He thinks whenever he sees KM, which are my initials, it's kilometers?
I think it's the KM with the slash that confuses.
Oh. Now, speaking of circulation and find rules, there is a new staff permission. Actually, staff permissions have gotten quite large in administration itself. So it's gotten really, really granular versus prior to this, it was managed circulation. The rest of admin were the two admin staff permissions. So let's go into my account. Andrew, get ready. Woo. If anyone was here yesterday, I decided to create my patron as Elizabeth Wakefield from Sweet Valley High. So let's go into set permissions for Elizabeth. We really had a good time talking about this afterwards. So now you see manage Koha system settings. Look at how many there are now. Yes, she wants all the books, yeah. So now we have a manage circ rules from any library. Right there, that's new. Plus, all these are new. I mean, this is crazy. We have manage Oh, what was the one we talked about in tech services? Currency? Where is it? I can't even find it now. Blah, 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 blah. Classification sources, item search fields, item types, SMS providers. I mean, if you had, oh, you know what, that's in acquisitions. If you had a semi person that should be able to do just a few of these admin things, this is really going to help allow just specific permissions in the admin. So this just speaks to me that says, wow, admin is really powerful, and it's great that we give certain permissions to certain people versus all the permissions. That's pretty cool. We're going to keep Elizabeth as a super librarian. And she has checked out Sweet Valley Confidential 10 years later. Okay. Oh, this is new, and since I'm in Sweet Valley Confidential 10 years later, it's gonna be jealous. Yes. There is now the ability to show number of items in these tabs. Prior, which I had no idea, prior to 1811, these numbers weren't here. Now, this is only going to be visible if you have the system preference separate holdings turned on. So if you have a multi-branch library consortium and you actually want to separate your holdings and have that system preference turned on, you would have your the branch you're logged into, so I'm logged into the East branch, show the holdings first, and then the other holdings, so we have one copy at the main. So now we have those numbers 3 and 1. This was something that we also had in the OPAC, but wasn't in the staff, so now it's here in both. So that's really exciting. Let's see, does anyone use, let's add this to my cart. Does anyone use the cart feature? Let's go to my cart. Pops up in another window. Oh, I should add another one. Hold on. Let's go back. There is sorting ability with carts. It's not, let's add Bob, the builder. Can we fix it? You can sort your cart now. If you click the title, this is a little different than what it's in other places in Koha, but it would appear that the Koha has been starting to use these like little tool tips or tips. I don't know what they're called. We could name them whatever we want. These little tips that if you hover, you can actually get more information. So we saw that in the circulation and fine rules. We're seeing that here. So now you can sort by the item, the titles, the item types, where you couldn't before. But I really like the little tool tips or tips. What do you think they're called, Andrew? Tips?
I believe those are tooltips.
Tooltips. So I did have it right. I remember somebody telling me, and I just don't remember what they were called. Okay, we are headed over to the, let me go back over to notices, because I wanted to show you, and I think you can find this in a lot of different places with each release. I feel like we've been adding these more and more, or Koha's been adding these more and more. You have this like little toolbar at the top. So I know this is available in reports, in patrons, now it's available in notices. So there's a search bar, there is the column visibility. So if you wanted to adjust this a little bit for this one-time view, you can do that if you wanted to print this. But of course, you know, being able to search your notices will be super helpful. Maybe we should add this to staff permissions. That would be really helpful. But you will start seeing those, or have been starting to see those features pretty regularly, and now they're in notice and slips. Inventory. How exciting is inventory? I can tell you that it's pretty exciting to me. There is now a new question in the top part up here when you use a barcode file. It says, check barcode list for items shelved out of order. So now, if you add a barcode file as something you've gone through your area and scanned, it will now tell you when something is out of order. I think I did do this morning. I should have given it another date than the same day as I did earlier, but I did actually have a ticket from a partner asking if this was a possibility, and I said, soon, very, very soon. So in addition to the pop-ups you usually get, whether it says, you know, how many things you had modified, how many barcodes, I had one that wasn't found, and then I had these problems items, my problem item children, items may be shelved out of order. So that's a really, really fun option. We probably will have a blog post on, or a tutorial video on the inventory. I think Jesse and I did ours in the 16 version. So I think a new look for the inventory for a video would be a good idea. Oops, I forgot one more on inventory. There is the allow skipping of items with waiting holds. So this is a new filter that's been added to the optional filters for inventory lists or comparing barcodes. So that's exciting. This seems like more of a cataloging, but we have it here in our admin. So now when you use Z39.50, either you're going to just straight up catalog from Z39.50 or replace via Z39.50 in a record, you actually now have the like keystroke in the little blinking thing in the ISBN, where before it wasn't. I think it was always in the title. So a lot of librarians got together and said, wouldn't it be great, and this would be more helpful to us, is to have the blinking cursor added to the ISBN versus somewhere else. Or maybe, oh, yippee, oh, somebody got excited about that. Was it a blinking cursor before? Some of these things you're like, no, that should be how it is. So the fact that I see it like that makes more sense. But maybe there wasn't a cursor at all, and you actually had to physically always put your cursor in there. Okay, that's how it used to be. So exciting.
That's a nice example of how, like, there is no bug too small.
There is no bug too small. And how I thought, well, it should be like that. It hasn't always been like that. And people just have to give their opinion and say, wouldn't it be great? Or this would save me a click, or my process would be so much easier because I'm hitting search and then I just want to scan the ISBN and it makes sense. So exactly, Andrew. There's no system too small. Okay, well, I don't know if everyone has stayed in the news with this European GDPR privacy push that Europe seems to be going. Now Koha, because we are an international open source software company, it was annoying, but I never thought to ask. See, ask the questions, submit the bugs. So now, because we're an international open source company, software program, there's now a couple system preferences and the ability to have your patrons consent for that GDPR feature, as well as direct them somewhere to your policy itself. So that's awesome. There was a great article, and I really wish that I can remember where I read it, but there was a great article in a library journal about the GDPR, and it looks like Koha's on top of it. So let's go to permissions, and I will show you those permissions, and then we'll have Elizabeth Wakefield go into the OPAC and have to accept. So GDPR. So we have GDPR _ policy. So if we want to enforce this or not enforce this, and then you can use a URL to where your privacy policy is listed. So your website, or in this case, it looks like Donna just put like the ALA policy page. So you can see there's just a URL and that enforced. So let's have Elizabeth pop on over to log in. Your patrons will have to accept this one time, and then they will have consented to it. So we have this where it says, in order to keep you logged in, we need to consent to process personal data as specified in the EU General Data Protection Regulation, and gives the date. So please save your consent or log out. So yes, I agree, no, I don't agree. And then this link will bring the user, if they wanted to read more about your policy, over to the policy page that you've identified in that other system preference. So once I hit that, they will never get that question again. It will be logged in what's the table? It would be in the borrowers table under patrons _ consent, I believe. And then it actually tells me when it was registered. Interesting. I think that's great. Okay, another, this was actually I'm going to bring up two changes that were just bugs that I know a lot of users and partners had questions or had issues with in the past. So these would be really exciting to you all if you're like, oh, yay. There was a system preference called to track last patron's activity. And before 1811, this was just really a performance killer. It just kind of didn't know what to do with all the information it was getting. So a lot of libraries had this off, but you can turn it back on if you want, and this will track your patron's last activity. So anytime a patron connects, you can see the value, borrower's last seen will be updated. So that would be your overdrive, your SIP connections. So not only logging into the OPAC, but SIP and overdrive. This will be something that you can actually see what patrons have been, not maybe necessarily joining you to check out physical books, but have been using your library services in other ways. So now we can, if you want to track that, you can actually turn this back on. Track last patron activity. Andrew created a handy dandy report for me to show. So let's go to my saved reports. So I think, I want to say we shared this report in the question and answers. I will double check, and if not, then, I don't want to run that one. Here we go, patron last activity. Let's go ahead and show the report itself. Oh, he even linked the borrowers. That's awesome. So he created a nice little pretty SQL so we can see when a patron's last activity. Now we're going to see a lot of 0s because before we turned it on, it wasn't tracking that. So you can see that we must have turned it around on the 9th. So Kelly logged in, Donna, Kid Clamp, Andrew, and Elizabeth. So that will track it. Our test site is on the Pacific coast, so we have a difference in time, but this will be really helpful if you wanted to see. I can tell you that when our library, if anyone's here from my library, I will. Yes, I will. I think it's there, but if not, I'm going to put it in the Q&A. Absolutely. We actually, with Overdrive, added a pin. And so, at some point we put messages all over the library. We sent out, we put it on the website, and we said, oh, we're adding a second layer and you need to use your library card plus a pin. Well, you would never imagine the number of phone calls we got, because users of maybe Overdrive never came into our library. They just borrowed the Overdrive books and had no idea we had gone to the to a pin number. But I could, yeah. I could put it in the chat if you want me to. Let's see how what activity it is tracking when your user logs in. So whether that's through the OPAC or Overdrive or any SIP connections, it will track that. And then finally, another bug that was one that a lot of academics had an issue with in the 1805 version was when they were using the patron import tool, that you could not overlay patrons matching on card number if a user ID existed. So now you can match on either the barcode or the username successfully, whether they are the same or not. So regardless, that has been fixed. There was a workaround. You could always choose the other one, but for a lot of libraries, it was just the change in the way it worked was hard, and it has gone back to the way it should be. Okay, so do we have any, before we go any further, do we have any questions before we do the system preference game? Any questions about anything? This is the last upgrade webinar. You may not hear from us or see us until October, I want to say. I want to shout out to a partner who says that I have replaced, or we have replaced her Netflix binging the last 2 weeks. So now instead of watching Netflix, she is watching upgrade webinars at night. I'm hoping with some popcorn. So Andrew, before we lose anybody, should I just run the report?
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. So let's do a little drum roll it up, and let us see the number of system preferences. Any last guesses? I'm going to guess 801. Oh, there we got another one. Yes. Hey, Carol. Oh, yes. Okay. Oh, hi. Okay, here we go. Any last guesses? Throw them in there. 653. That's it.
Tam was so close. I actually really quickly logged into Tam's library to see if they had written the report.
Oh, really? So Tam, I think you're the winner, right? Yeah. Tam, it feels like more, I know.
That's what I thought.
I'm not sure what library you're from, Tam, but congratulations. That's a really awesome guess. Tam, they guessed 659, and there are 653. I thought we were in the 700s, like two versions ago, so I couldn't imagine it not going higher. So, and I don't think this version of 1811 actually deleted any, where I think 1805 we deleted at least like 2, but we're just continuously growing. But I agree with Marcia, it feels like more. Any other questions about 1811 upgrades, where you can access any information? I want to thank Jesse and Andrew, for joining me today for our last hurrah. And congratulate Tam on successfully getting closest in guessing system preferences.